Hi, folks. Terry Martin, joined with Jeff Berkowitz. It's been a while since we've been together, Jeff, but we got some big news to be covering. Of course, we're going to be taking a look at the election results and some of the major issues that voters will be facing between now and November, and if it might mean a whole new chapter for Illinois. Let's take a brief listen to Darren Bailey, who won the Republican gubernatorial nomination to face Governor Pritzker in November.
Pritzker doesn't understand how skyrocketing gas prices and soaring food prices make everyday life harder for Illinois families like you and I. He doesn't understand how his and Joe Biden's extreme national agenda helps fuel inflation and increases utility bills for families like us across Illinois.
And again, that was Darren Bailey, that video courtesy of WGN. Jeff, ordinarily, there's some big news, and ordinarily you and I would be talking about it. Let me just mention this very briefly, that today, Judge Katanya Brown Jackson joined the Supreme Court. Stephen Breyer has left the court as the Supreme Court ended up. And another major issue that you and I ordinarily would be spending a lot of time on, maybe we can do it in the future, is West Virginia versus the EPA. And basically, the court here ruled that the agencies of government cannot be making policy. That is the purview of the Congress, and the Congress cannot be jobbing out their decision-making to agencies of government. So the thing is, that doesn't impact just the EPA. It would apply across the board to all these different agencies. Again, a major decision, and very few people in the country have even heard of this case. It's got virtually no coverage. So that's a big issue. But now that said, let's take a look at some of the election results. And Jeff, the big thing, let's start off at the top. One of the Ken Griffin had a slate put out of candidates, and his slate basically went down in flames. But we do have this election with Kathy Salvi running for the United States Senate. That's one of the few wins that the slate got. And she joined at the very last minute, the 11th hour. What are your thoughts on Kathy Salvi's chances of winning in November, Jeff?
Well, number one, she was not a part of the slate, so was not a win for them. Separately recruited, not by Griffin per se, but by she was encouraged, as she would put it, by Richard Porter to run. And the short of it is, does she have a good shot? Actually, she has a reasonable shot, even though she starts in the hole with Duckworth probably having $7 million. Kathy doesn't have that. But what she does have is a possible red wave. She does have the issues of inflation, of border control, of crime, and gas prices soaring, and energy prices, and brownouts, all of that ahead of her that she can exploit and take advantage in a good sense. These are important public policy issues that people care about, really. That's what they care about. Put the so-called kitchen table issues. And so Salvi's got that. She's been hammering that. She's going to do that more. Does she have a shot? Yes, she has a shot.
You know, it was her husband, Al Salvi, that ran 26 years ago against Dick Durbin in 1996. How does Kathy Salvi, in your estimation? I think a lot of people have not heard of her, have not heard her speak because she, hasn't been in the race that long. At least when you look around the country. How good of a candidate is she, and does she have the capacity to raise the needed funds to be a successful candidate?
Well, I think she does. It would certainly help if Griffin wants to stay involved, even though she wasn't a part of the slate. I think surely he would like to see her win this race, and he's going to be less able to give funds in the way he did in the governor race, but he certainly has a lot of rich friends who could. So he can certainly help by encouraging those people. It's a little harder to avoid some of the limits on the federal side, but still somewhat able to do so. So the short answer is yes. I think if she's really out there and really pushing to raise money and she gets some assistance from Griffin and others, I think she I don't know that she's going to be up there with Duckworth, but as people say, you don't have to go one-to-one with somebody. You just have to have enough funds to get out your message and reach the people so they know who you are, what you're running on, that you're speaking out, and that they can then decide, do they prefer you as a U.S. Senate candidate to the alternative, in this case, Tammy Duckworth.
You know, I earlier this year, we Illinois Channel covered a panel discussion with some of the Chicago area reporters discussing the campaign season, and Marianne Ahern, the Chicago Republican political reporter, I should say, I misspoke, the Chicago political reporter said that she couldn't think of one thing that Senator Tammy Duckworth had achieved during her 6 years in office. And so I would argue that I think Senator Duckworth is vulnerable. Now, it doesn't mean she'll be easy to beat, but I don't think she's one of these U.S. senators that is impossible to knock off. She's a one-termer so far, running for a second term, and again, without much of a record to show for her time in office.
Well, and remember, in these midterms, in the 2022 elections, Kathy Salvi is on the top of the ballot here in Illinois. She is the top of the ballot. She's not a down vote. She's not a down ballot vote. She's an up ballot vote. So if she wants to be the leader, she has that opportunity. If she wants to go out and take this contest to her opponent, if Kathy Salvi wants to say, here, I know the issues, I have a vision, and I'm speaking out, not a bad slogan for Kathy Salvi if she wants to use that, because obviously Marianne Ahern is reasonably balanced. And if she said that about Duckworth, you can't think of anything that she's known for. You know, that's a pretty tough criticism of Tammy Duckworth, and it gives Kathy Salvi a major opening. You take that with the red wave, you take that with the tremendously low approval rating of Joe Biden, who you can wrap Joe Biden around Tammy Duckworth's neck, literally, and the whole set of wrong policies that have been adopted in the first year of the Biden administration, the inflation, the crime, the border control, the poor foreign policy. Boy, just wrap it around Tammy Duckworth and you've got yourself a campaign. Now, we'll see. We hope to have we hope to have Kathy Salvi on the show. We'll sit down with her, we hope, for a half an hour and see what she's running on, if it is as I'm predicting. And we hope to have Tammy Duckworth on the show. And we've had her on Public Affairs before. So that's what democracy is about, getting competing views and see what sells best to the voters of this country and of the state of Illinois.
Well, to quote James Carville, it's the economy, stupid. And when people are spending over $5 for gas and barely making ends meet, and they're only doing that, according to a number of economic reports, because they're running up debt on their credit cards, it's not a good time to be running if you're the incumbent and people want to throw the bums out, so to speak. But with that said, we won't spend a whole lot of time here. There was no surprise that Governor Pritzker won the nomination. I am somewhat surprised to see that Beverly Miles got 67,000 votes even. But the question, I suppose, on one hand, and this is a guess, will those 67,000 Democrats that are votes that voted against Governor Pritzker, will they now vote for him, or will they join vote to go to Darren Bailey? We see that Governor Pritzker got 700 and let's call it 54,000, just to round up a bit, votes. So that is significant for him. And if we, on the other hand, go over to Darren Bailey winning, you see Bailey got 453,000, but you add up some of the others, they're roughly in the same number of votes. What is your analysis, you think, Jeff, as far as how this might go? Are you going to handicap it at this time, the race for governor?
Well, Darren Bailey has a shot. Dan Proft put out a poll from the same guy who polled this election, and that polling that Proft and others had used turned out to be pretty predictive of the actual outcome. Well, that poll on a 1-to-1 matchup that I think was done just before the election had Bailey losing, but only 50 to 43 to Pritzker. If he starts with a 7 point deficit, that's really not so bad. That's a winnable race if that poll is accurate. And I think, as I said, the same polling firm that had done that had produced accurate results of what the full primary turned out to be for the Republican primary for governor. So he does have to focus on the key issues of Illinois. And those key issues, as you just said, look, it's inflation nationally, it's gas prices and inflation in Illinois. Even though Pritzker may be viewed as not responsible for the inflation, again, you can take that Biden thing and you can wrap that around Pritzker's neck.
Right. Let me
And
just insert for a second here. This is a bit old, but here we got inflation near a 40-year high. Well, this is from last October. It is now at a 40-year high. We have this graphic from our friends at WirePoint, Illinois, with the highest unemployment rate among its neighbors. And then what's the overall mood of the economy? And here, this from this morning, stocks fall. The S&P heads for the worst first half of the year in 52 years. So that is a pretty bleak, if you're the incumbent, it's pretty bleak background to be running and trying to say that we've done a great job. And you're right. I think the sentiment among voters is that they're going to be blending their angst, their anger at the Biden administration, and it could certainly splash back on a number of the candidates here in Illinois, the Democrats running for office.
and look, Pritzker's out there talking national stuff. He's already running for president. He might be getting a little bit ahead of his skis going out to New Hampshire, saying, oh, he's touting Illinois as the place for the 2024 convention, but he's also touting J.B. Pritzker for president without saying it. Okay, he's certainly not turning away those rumors. And so he's running a national campaign. And what's he talking about here? Boy, he's not talking about the skyrocketing crime. He's not talking about the skyrocketing gas prices, helped along by the high Illinois gas taxes. He's not talking about the malaise that is setting in for Illinois. He's not talking about the fact that the schools were closed in large part due to his assistance during COVID. He's not talking about the lockdown that made Illinois grossly inferior in terms of its economy relative to the neighboring states. No, he's not talking about any of that stuff. He's talking about abortion. He's running on abortion. Is that really what people are thinking of? Democrats, independents, and Republicans when they get up each morning? Is abortion on their mind? I don't think so. I think it's a major opening for Bailey if he wants to focus on the bread and butter issues, the kitchen table issues, and he wants to speak clearly to people about that. It's a golden opportunity. And
let me insert. I don't think that's the abortion is what's on people's mind as well. Some people might be, yeah. But the other thing is not only is abortion still allowed in Illinois, they passed the Illinois Democrats controlling the legislature passed a bill in 2019. But that the law in Illinois is you can abort up to the day before or an hour before the baby's going to be born. So not only is it a state that is going to continue to allow abortions, but it's one of the most radical of all the states as far as it being abortion on demand.
So why, Terry, is the governor, he's already called for or will call for a special session this summer to call the Illinois legislature.
I don't know what he thinks they're going to do when they already passed the bill allowing abortion in Illinois. So I don't know what
here's what they're going to do.
It's a political.
I'm going to tell you. They've already told us. They want Illinois to be the abortion mecca. The governor's running on abortion, Illinois being the abortion capital of the country. And it's not enough so everybody can get an abortion up to the last day prior to birth. Some would say even after birth. It's not enough for that to be available in Illinois to all of the Illinois citizens and residents. He wants to make sure it's available to the folks in Missouri.
Given the state of the Illinois economy, given all the regulations and taxes on businesses, Maybe the governor's just trying to balance the budget by having one business, one industry that's a growth industry, and he's going for abortions.
But the other thing is he hasn't quite told people yet who's going to pay for this. We're going to start, apparently, he wants to subsidize abortions, subsidize travel expenses into the country. And so maybe they're going to cover that in the session. Boy, I think that's going to go over really big in these troubled times. We're now going to be paying for people out of state to have abortions in Illinois. I really don't know what these folks are thinking. This is the progressive left. We hear a lot in the media about the far right wing taking over in Illinois. How about the far left wing taking over in Illinois? We don't seem to hear anything about that. But this is a pretty far left idea that I don't think sells well, especially not with independents, especially not with Republicans. And there are a number of so-called moderate Democrats who may not be thrilled with this emphasis of J.B. Pritzker. Again, this is an opening for Senator Darren Bailey, or as he likes to call himself these days, the next governor of the state of Illinois.
Well, Darren Bailey is adamantly, pro-life, and so that's a key issue if Governor Pritzker wants to make abortion a key issue. But to your point about him running for president, I don't deny it. The thing is, I'm not sure, as you were just saying, that even is going abortion on demand. I'm not sure how well that plays across the country. I think.
Well, just remember, often when government goes astray and overregulates and legislates in the wrong way, what is it? What is it that often helps correct that? The free market and technology. Technology trumps, so to speak, bad legislation. And I understand, I haven't checked the statistic, but I've heard, at least nationally, 60% of the abortions are now performed essentially by a pill, medication. And we know that medication has replaced so much surgically in so many other areas, whether it's heart disease, diabetes, and so forth. Same thing seems to be happening in abortion. And I don't know how anybody's going to stop people from getting these pills. I don't think they're even going to try. So if it is the case that 60% of the abortions are done by medicine, what is Pritzker talking about? What are the Democrats talking about? I think they're really off base on this. And the other thing is what Bill Clinton had said that was popular going back to the 90s and still may be. Clinton said he wanted abortions to be safe, legal, and rare. And the people say there are polls, and depending on what poll you cite, that may show that people want women in general to have a choice about abortion. And even if that's true, they generally think they want them to have a choice at least in the first 3 months. Maybe the next trimester, not so clear. Surely not the third trimester. So it is not the case. Nobody can cite polls saying people want what we have in Illinois. I don't even know if people in Illinois want what we have in Illinois, or the majority of people. So look, the abortion, you have to use some finesse in talking about it. Bailey has to use some finesse when he talks about it. You have to understand some subtleties and maybe communicate that. But you got to focus on the main issues. And I don't see, and I'm sure Bailey realizes this, the main issue for him running for governor is not abortion. Now, the media may try to, tie that around his neck, because that's the media's bias here in Illinois and elsewhere. But if he wants to emphasize these issues that I've mentioned at press conferences, at events, on TV, it's up to him.
And Jeff, we're also looking. Let's take a look at some of the other races here. Jesse White, after so many years of being in office, is leaving. We have on the Democratic side, Alexi Giannoulias, the former state treasurer, is now the nominee for the Democratic Party. And we have Representative Dan Brady from the Bloomington area won handily against John Milhiser, who is from the Springfield area. And Milhiser was one of those who was slated by Ken Griffin. And so, Jeff, I didn't know what you were thinking as far as these races that were slated but not the governor's race.
Well, look, I'll just say maybe it's such a big topic. We should do a whole show on that topic alone. And that topic I'm referring to is the Gang of Four. How bad the choice was of Richard Irvin to be the GOP primary candidate for governor. Okay, what were they thinking? The Gang of Four, led by Mike Z. Mike Z will never work in Illinois again, I predict, in a political campaign. Such a disaster. Somebody wonder why he was hired for this campaign. I mean, look, I don't know Mike. I met him maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I'm sure he's a nice enough guy, but just being objective, it was just a disaster of a campaign, especially the campaign of Richard Irvin, poorly conceived, poorly executed. Everything about it was wrong. And it didn't get any better when you went down ballot for the Secretary of State. What is that? Almost 4-1. I mean, Brady's beating Millhiser, who really looked great on paper, although he looked better for an Attorney General candidate than he did for Secretary of State. Really, every bit of this campaign, you say, what were they thinking? Steve
And
Kim got
here
whacked,
we have Steve Kim, yeah, 35%
10 point,
from Tom
9 point
DeVore.
lead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was outspent by Kim. Didn't matter. Didn't matter. DeVore was somebody who was running for the last 2 years. He didn't know he was running, but he was speaking out as a lawyer. He was Bailey's lawyer in his camp in Bailey's lawsuits against Pritzker, which turned out to really, if not technically winning in fact. The masking that came off like 8 months ago, 9 months ago, they can thank thank in large part those lawsuits by Darren Bailey and the lawsuits his counsel, the Attorney General candidate
Tom DeVore.
DeVore. Okay,
Tom
Tom
DeVore,
DeVore.
yeah.
Excuse me.
And
then
here, but because time goes short, let's do the Republican 15th district. We had Mary Miller handily defeating Congressman Rodney Davis. These were two Republican incumbents that were pushed into the same district. The Democrats doing that so they could get rid of one of them. Mary Miller, as she was endorsed by President Trump, who came to Illinois to campaign for her. And that clearly made the difference in a district that is heavily Republican, and almost surely Mary Miller will win re-election to the House in a district where that encompasses something like 34 counties. This is a massive district running from the Indiana border all the way to the Mississippi.
So this is another loss for Ken Griffin. This isn't Mike Z, as far as I know. This isn't the Gang of Four. This is Ken Griffin investing heavily in the Rodney Davis campaign with him, his friends, etc., and just getting beat. What is that? It's a 16 point. I thought the eventual thing, maybe that's a 16-point
16
lead.
points,
So,
yeah.
so
Almost
look,
64,000 to 47,000 votes.
Griffin threw $50 million, down the toilet, mainly focusing on the campaign for governor, investing in Richard Irvin to be his GOP candidate. Couldn't have made a worse choice. They were thinking, oh, this is going to be great for the general. Maybe it would have been, but gee, doesn't Mike Z tell Ken Griffin at some point? Doesn't matter if you don't win the primary, you don't win the general. There's no way Richard Irvin was going to win the primary. Okay. And then the icing on the cake was bad choice for AG and Kim, bad choice for Secretary of State and Millhiser. And, I think Ken Griffin, $30 billion, the richest man in Illinois of net worth, has to be wondering about the guy who was his political director and anybody else who was advising him in this campaign. But maybe he should look
last
at
but
the
not least, we have about 3 minutes left or so, was a race that I participated in, Jeff, and the House district for the newly redrawn 13th. This is the 13th is what Rodney Davis used to represent, and Regan Deering. Now, I know these people, of course. I participated as a candidate in this race. All good people. We ran a very good civil race on the issues. None of us attacked the other, which is probably the one race here that happened in. But Regan Deering ended up besting Jesse Rising, who was also backed by Richard Porter, as you've mentioned before. Jesse had worked with Kirkland and Ellis in Chicago for a number of years. Jesse graduated from both Yale and Harvard, so a very good candidate. Regan obviously put a lot of money as well, about $357,000 she's raised, and she will be facing Nikki Berdinsky, I'm not sure of the pronunciation, who has already raised $1.7 million. So that will be in a district that was drawn to be a Democratic district. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But again, in this economy, Bedinsky had worked for Joe Biden. I think that could be hung around her neck, and she will perhaps suffer from that association instead of benefiting from it.
Well, and downstate, I don't know how popular Pritzker is, and Nikki Budzinski was also a staffer for Pritzker as well as Biden. I think they got some work to do if they want to win downstate. Yes, that district was carved out for her, really specifically, is at least a plus 10D. But, in a red wave year, I think Nikki's going to have to find out what people downstate really believe. I don't think she's been down in the 13th where you live, Terry, too often to really know what's going on. I don't think she fits too well with that district. I mean,
Well, there was an article early on where a Democrat in the Springfield area said she's a carpetbagger. She grew up in, I got the wrong, not Pekin, Peoria. She grew up in the Peoria area, and then had been working both in Washington and Chicago area. So she was being accused even by some of the Democrats of being a carpetbagger. A lot of financial support, but as we saw with Ken Griffin, that doesn't always win elections. Jeff, we better sign off, and at least now we can go back to covering some of these issues. Good to be back with you, and ladies and gentlemen, thank for watching, and Jeff and I will keep you abreast. Have a good 4th of July. Jeff, have a good 4th of July.
Happy birthday to the United States.
Thank you. Take care.